At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. Whether it's a walk-off grand slam or a base hit to center field. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello and welcome to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. Hope you're well. Hope you're enjoying the break from football, whether you're somebody that was relieved the season was over or if you wish the season was still happening, we've got you covered here. We're going to have got a special episode for you today. We're going to be focusing on Forest's transfer activity before the Euros. I'm your host, George, and I'm joined by our resident stat man and researcher, Adam. Adam, how are you, mate?
Oh, good, mate. That's a good intro, that is. I like that. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I won't build you up too much then. That'll be the end of that. I guess the first question I want to touch on then is Forest transfer strategy this transfer window, because we know under Marinakis we like to sign a minimum of 10 players per transfer window, and I think we say every window, but I don't really feel like that's a necessity this summer. Maybe you look at, we'll probably need a goalkeeper to challenge, a full back for support, a couple of centre backs, and then I'd say a winger, a striker, and an attacking midfielder. So that's maybe 7. So how do you think Forest should approach this transfer window?
I think with that mindset, certainly that we don't need a lot. I mean, we'll go through it. I've not brought in too many to the club in the plan that I put out there. But you've also got to replace players. You've also got to have a bit of squad depth. It's not the same signing 10, 15 players for the sake of it. It's signing players that I genuinely think we need, and then a few players that I think will come up in the future. And it's just getting that balance right. And it looks like the club are already starting to go into that process by cheap, effective signings that will help keep us in PSR, knowing we're probably going to have to sell a couple of players, knowing that that's the sort of window we're going to have. But you can do it, and you can do it effectively without spending lots of money.
Yeah, Murillo's exhibit A of that, isn't he? And if we can, sell him and then buy another Murillo and do that next season, it'll be a good process to get into. We'll start with one of the biggest rumours that looks like could be getting over the line soon. It's that Forest are close to potentially signing Shay Adams on a free transfer. Us and Wolves interested, I think, and he's leaving them obviously on the back of a promotion. Now, I've got to say, I wasn't overly excited about it when I first heard about it. I think we've had interest before, and I certainly didn't want Forest to pay for him because I think in front of goal in the Premier League, he's not really cutted it. I remember going there when we won 1-0 and he missed a couple of sitters, and they should have won the game, but obviously we won 1-0 there. But in the Premier, he's got 25 goals, 13 assists in 124 appearances. And on a free transfer to maybe be the third choice, Adam, I suppose it's not the worst signing in the world, is it?
No, it's one that I like. And I think the reason I like it mostly is because obviously you say it's a free transfer. He got 15 goals in the Championship last year, which isn't a bad return at all. What I like about him, I think he fits a lot of what we try and do to get the wingers involved as well. He's got something like 3.46, something like progressive passes a game. He attempts more passes than most forwards do. He completes more passes than most forwards do. He's the sort of striker that will score you goals, but he'll also play the pass before the assist a lot, and that's something he's really well known for. And to be honest, he's on a free transfer. You've got Chris Wood and you've got Taiwo that have proven they're going to score goals in our system. They've proven they'll score goals for the club. So you bring in a striker. I'm not going to say he's third choice because I don't think it has to go in that sort of first choice, second choice, third choice striker. I think you can put out different strikers for different things, but yeah, I think it's a smart free agent pickup. And all the posts on Twitter thinking we're going to get Paulo Dybala and getting disappointed by Che Adams. You're just disappointing yourself more than anything there, aren't you?
Yeah, and something that a 1 year would have proven is that there'll be opportunities because at least one of them would mostly be injured most of the time. So I don't think he'll certainly be from third choice for the whole of the season. So we're going to go position by position. We'll touch on striker later and bring in any other options that Adam has maybe got for us. But we'll start with the goalkeepers. Now, I'd expect Matt Turner and Odysseus Vlachodimos to go. We've seen Matt Turner have another stinker on international duty, and Vlachodimos is third choice now. I know you don't like that hierarchy, but certainly in the goalkeeping department, he's definitely third choice. And I don't think he left Benfica for that. So I'd certainly expect them two to go. Turner's an all right number two, but we can't really rely on him, can we? So you wouldn't feel confident bringing him off the bench, although he did do all right in a few cup games towards the end. Now, one of the biggest rumours is about Carlos Miguel from Corinthians, 25. And the headline is that he's 6'8" for £3.5 million. Decent deal that if Forest think he's the right player. I've seen a little video of him on Twitter of sort of his best saves, and you can tell that both ways. I remember seeing one of Bree Samba and thinking it was amazing, and that turned out to be right. And then I saw one of Turner, and obviously we know how that's happened. So Carlos Miguel, is that a name that you had on your list, Adam?
No, I've got to be completely honest, absolutely never heard of him. I had to do all my research and stuff after the link came out. But yeah, I mean, I think it's one of them. You look at the Brazilian journalists have got to say about him, and it looks like he is a solid first choice goalkeeper. And he's not coming here to be a second choice, to be a backup. Now, touch obviously what I had. I had all three goalkeepers, so Hennessy, Turner, and Vlachodimos all leaving. Hennessy's gone. I do think we're trying to find suitors for the other two goalkeepers. So I think that's looking like that's going to happen. My process was actually looking for a cheap goalkeeper because I think we need to be very careful with money. I looked at Corin Casteels from Wolfsburg. He's the only club that he's actually been linked with is Celtic. So I thought we'd have to spend a lot of money wages wise on him, but we might not have to. He's been a first choice goalkeeper in the Bundesliga for over 10 years, got all that experience. I think that's the sort of player that I would have looked at. But I think we'll probably sign two goalkeepers in this window anyway. If we're getting rid of Vlachodimos and Turner, we'll probably sign another two. So for me, Miguel, and then I'd still maybe go in for Casteels if that's the option. He's a free transfer. Smart pickups for not a lot of money. That's going to be the aim of the game this window.
So does Sells then fall to third choice then, or what are your thoughts on him? Because I think he's certainly been an improvement on the other two, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think Sells is a solid goalkeeper, and I think he'd probably feel a bit hard done by to not be rewarded with the first choice, next year. But there's a lot of elements of Sells' game that I think are fairly, need a lot of work. I think he looked fantastic, but compared to what had been in already, compared to Turner, compared to Vlachodimos, he looked better. I still think he's probably a backup goalkeeper. I don't think he's a first choice goalkeeper. So I think if they go for Miguel, they may look at that and say, well, we'll go for him. Then we'll maybe go for a much younger goalkeeper. They've been linked with a couple of 21, 22-year-olds, Andrew from Portugal. So, they've looked at the young goalkeeper. So they might go Miguel, Sells, and then the young goalkeeper for the future as their, pecking order of three. To only have to spend a couple of million quid on that as well, it's even better, really, isn't it?
Yeah, a little buys is what we're after. So we'll move into the centre of defence then. Now, obviously, I think Forest's aim really this month is to sell Murillo to avoid PSR deductions next season. I mean, Everton only got a 2-point deduction second time round, so I don't know if Forest are considering that, and is it worth taking a 2-point hit to keep him? But I think selling him possibly looks like it's on the horizon. Although I remember throughout the season seeing like Real Madrid, Liverpool linked with him, and since the season's been over, I've not really seen that. So time's obviously running out on that. And I've seen there's interest in Moussa Niakate as well. I wouldn't be too sort of opposed to letting him go. Forest can get a decent amount of money compared to what they paid for. And obviously Joe Worrell also looks like he'll be let go, which would leave, if Niakate, Murillo and Worrell go, I believe just Omobamidele, Bolly, and just those two, isn't it? If those they leave. So that's probably not strong enough. I think Bolly you can't rely on. And I'm not sure on Bamidele's Premier League quality yet. So Forest certainly need to recruit in that area, Adam. What have you got for us?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially if Nuno wants the option of playing a three as well, he certainly needs to bring a couple of centre-halves in probably. So regarding to centre-halves, I had a couple on my radar. So I looked at Joel Matip, purely because I think that we need that kind of I mean, Bolly's come in and done a really good job. Just really solid Premier League experience. Obviously, Premier League winner for Liverpool. Still got a lot left in the tank for me. Obviously, the big negative to him is his fitness and his injury record, but you're not bringing him in, needing him to start or every Premier League game. You're bringing him in as an option. All depends on wages for that one. I looked at Adoke from Augsburg as well, another Bundesliga link. Very similar to Niakate in the profile, 26 years old, entering his prime. Really positive metrics in the Bundesliga, 5.3 clearances a game, 3.4 aerial duels, one per game. He's a bit of a monster in the air. Player that can play the ball out from the back as well. Fits a very similar mold to Niakate, but a bit more injury proof, doesn't get injured as much. And then I looked at one that sort of you can play left back or centre back, but I think we're probably going to get priced out of is Juan Miranda from Real Betis. Um, Bit of a weird one. It looked like he was joining AC Milan in January. That fell through, and there's not actually been a move confirmed for him. He's been offered a new deal at Real Betis, but hasn't signed one. Been linked with West Ham and a couple of Premier League clubs, a bit higher up the pecking order. But sometimes players get linked with clubs higher up. It happened to Sangare, got linked with the clubs that were a bit higher up the table. They didn't come in for him, and then Forest pounced on that and got him. I know it hasn't really worked out yet. I'm still confident that will, but yeah, you're looking at a couple of really talented players there. I think we need to mix that experience with, the younger side of things as well. So I've got Joel Matip's 32, Udoki's 26, and Miranda's 24. So you're really balancing that out. Miranda would be a free, Matip would be a free, and Udoki I think you could probably get for sort of around 10 to 15 million potentially. So based on transfer marks, I go a bit higher than transfer mark because they're always a bit low.
Yeah.
But about 10 to 50 million if you get that one over the line. So definitely a couple of really good options for Forest.
Yeah, and at good ages, like you say, as well. How much of a priority do you think central defence is? Because for me, I think that'd be right at the top of the list. We've had defensive worries under Nuno, and we know that we've scored more goals, but then seem to have conceded more. So how high up the pecking list would be getting a defender for you?
Well, I think the club have certainly emphasised. I mean, the athletic article and that sort of thing seems to be that they are prioritising it. It's a weird one because I think I read a stat from open play. We weren't actually that bad defensively. It was more from set pieces and defending them that was the biggest issue last season. So the club have identified that by looking to buy a 6'8" goalkeeper who's going to come for crosses. That's one step of fixing it. And then I think the club need to look at some. And the profile of player that I have is defenders that win a lot in the air. You want those aerial duel rate as high as possible. You want players that will head everything away. A bit like when we saw Bolly in that first season, just head absolutely every single ball away, put his body on the line. That's the sort of defender that we need, and I would imagine that's the profile the club look at.
Yeah, we have looked far better with Bolly when he's been next to Maria. That's been by far our strongest lineup. So if we can sign another couple of Bollies, that'd be all right. So we're moving to fullback there. Now we've got Aina, Williams, and Toffolo at the moment. I believe that's the three we've got, potentially Omar Richards as well. You think Aina and Williams will be the first choice too, given their form towards the back end of the season? But obviously, we know that they are injury prone as well. So Forest might be looking for a backup right back. Do you think maybe? What do you think about that situation?
Yeah, potentially. I think it's a difficult one because I don't think anyone thought that Nico Williams would, press on and sort of develop in the way that he did last season. He was fantastic at times, but we have got options there. Like you say, obviously, Aina can play both sides. Toff's a good backup at left back. We don't really know what we've got in Omar Richards. But if truth be told, there was a lot of promise when we signed him from Bayern Munich, but we don't know whether or not he's going to fulfill that potential or not. I mean, fullback areas, I didn't view it as high as some other people do because I think that we've got a very capable starting left back and a very capable starting right back. We've got a very capable backup left back in Harry Toffolo and Omar Richards. I think maybe you're probably just looking at maybe a right back to challenge Nico Williams. And I must admit that I went for a player that I romanticised this and went for a player that I really like. I went for Rahul Bellanova from He's been linked with clubs higher at the Premier League table, but again, another one of them where if you don't go for a player, you don't know. Been fantastic for Torino, more as a wing back. 2 goals, 9 assists in Serie A last year. Absolutely brilliant. Issue with him is that he's 23 years old. And the reason I say that's an issue is because Torino aren't going to want nothing for him. I'm thinking they're probably going to want 25, 30 million for him. And then we're competing with, your Man United's been linked with him, West Ham again have been linked with him. So it's competing for a signature, but you just never know. Sometimes you've got to go for the right profile of player, and then they pick you down the line and you end up unearthing a gem and you sell him on in a couple of years' time for 60, 70 million, don't you? So it's all about taking those educated risks.
Yeah, spot on. But as you're sort of starting to, I'm very happy with Nico and Aina, like you say. Are you?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that if the club brought Bellin over, he'd obviously be first choice on the basis of what he did in Serie A last year. But I think he'd still have to compete with Nico for that position.
Yeah.
Nico was probably one of the most underrated players last year for us. I think he was excellent at times. And he just puts absolutely everything into it, doesn't he? Like body on the line stuff. He's just aggressive. He's determined. He gets forward well. And I think last season, the big key factor with Nico was his defending was much better.
Yeah.
We all knew he could go forward really well, but his defending was in question. I think he improved massively in his defensive side of things. So if we start the first game of the season with Viner and Williams at fullback, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah. I think what sums him up the most is that he started both Premier League seasons as maybe the last choice, but by the end, he was by far and away the first choice. So that sums him up very well. We're going to take a break. We've touched on defenders and goalkeepers. When we're back, we'll move further up the pitch.
The 1865 Match Report.
At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. Whether it's a walk-off grand slam or a base hit to center field. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
Hello and welcome back to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast, and back to our special transfer episode looking at Forest transfer activity between now and September. Now, we looked at goalkeepers and defenders before the breaks. We're now going to look at holding midfield. Now, we've got a trio, a quadruple of four good players in Danilo, Yates, Sangare and Dominguez. Looks like Lewis O'Brien is going to be let go by the club. Forest also looking at giving Ryan Yates a new contract with his deal ending next summer. I think as a four, I'm very happy with that. And for me, that wouldn't be a huge priority. I think you can adapt them and change them throughout the games. And maybe hoping Sangare, this can be his breakthrough season next year. Now, I'm sure you've got a few names for us, Adam, but is holding midfield a priority? Because I don't think it is for me.
So I did have a signing a holding midfielder purely because I think that you want to free up a few of the other players you've got. I like Ryan Yates a lot. And, I'm not one of these people that slates him on Twitter every week. I think he always gives his all for Forest. And I think that he actually does his job really effectively. I'm a massive fan of Sangare when we signed him. I thought it was a brilliant signing. I've obviously vocalised that in our group chat, but it hasn't worked. But you have to look at it this way. He had AFCON, he had malaria. He had a really, really tough season last season. He's going to have a full pre-season under his belt. He's still a fantastic midfielder. I know a lot of people are saying that they want to shift him out if Galatasaray are actually interested, but you've got to look at PSR. We spent 30 million on him. The only way we can afford to sell him is if we get more than what we paid. No one's going to come in with more than 30 mil for Sangare.
Yeah.
Then you've got Danilo. I don't like Danilo as a 6. I think he's so much better as an 8 or pushing forward. When we stayed up the first season, he was absolutely massive with the goals he chipped in. So he's wasted playing in there. Mangala's going to go. I think my heart of hearts, I think Dominguez is going to go. I had us selling him, not because I think we should, but I think he will go. He's a very obvious one for PSR that we could shift, and we could balance the books a bit more. The only defensive midfielder I was going for is Steven Estaquio. He's plays for Porto. 27 years old. I think that's the profile I wanted. I don't want someone that's 21, 22. Don't think that's what we need. I think we need someone that's an experienced professional. It's a tough one because he does play a lot of games for Porto, but the rumours saying you get for about 10 or 15 million quid. He's a Canadian international, but he's very much that defensive midfielder. Good numbers, like 3.5 blocks a game, 2.39 tackles a game. He's a very effective passer on the ball as well. I think he just takes a bit of pressure off Sangare having to come in and be that number 6, because at times Sangaria played as an 8 for PSV, so
Yeah.
maybe free him up. I like the Florentino Luis link. The only issue I have with that one is how much it's going to cost. It's not a priority position. And if the fee of 25-30 million is true, we can't. I just don't think we can spend that on a defensive midfielder. It's just not as much a priority for me.
Yeah.
If we bring him in, a loan to buy, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
a loan with an obligation to buy the year after, I'm fine with that. If the obligation to buy is at 25-30 million, I'm probably still okay with it. You've had another year to balance the books. You've got new rules coming in. So I think I'd be fine with a loan to buy. But if you're talking 30 million right here, right now, I can't see how we can do that on a holding midfielder.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, guessing Marinakis' transfer activity and his plan. But I think it's one of them where you see where you are in mid-August, see if you've got enough money and see if you think it's a priority with who goes. We'll move a bit further forward then to attacking midfield. Now, I think it's reasonably clear that Forest don't want to sell Morgan Gibbs-White, but they're aware that if they have to, he's a big enough asset. Murillo's the one that they're sort of prioritising to sell. And I think that's what a lot of the fan base would have been after as well. But you look at when Morgan, which wasn't very long, but when he wasn't fit for a couple of games, or when Nuno sort of wanted to take him off, I'm thinking Brighton and Luton away where he took him off, and we brought Dominguez on once and Origi on once or something like that. And they're completely different players. It's the only sort of player we have. And I think we signed Reina purely because Nuno was scared if Morgan got injured. So attacking midfield, I think, is one where Forest have got to be thinking. Sammy Spodix is probably the dream, given the season he has had. He's 28. He's possibly at the peak of his powers. And I've seen that potentially available for 20 million. That seems like an all right deal for me. But that's me just being generic and looking at the championship market. So let's hear some foreign picks, Adam.
Yeah, so Smodics, I wouldn't go for 20 million quid. Just the profile of player. He's 28. I don't think the age is a problem, but I don't think that the club are going to spend 20 million quid on a player of that age. But I do like Sammy Smodics. I think for me, the player that I was obsessed with, and unfortunately, since I published this on 20th of May, he's actually now gone and signed for another Premier League club. So it's almost as if I am a Crystal Palace fan, because I wanted Oliver Glasner to be Forest manager. He went to Palace. I wanted Daichi Kamada to sign for Forest. He's gone to Palace to reunite with his old manager from Frankfurt. So Daichi Kamada is the player that I was desperate for Forest. On a free from Lazio, he's probably one of the best available players as a free agent. He's an attacking midfielder that makes 3 tackles a game. He's an attacking midfielder that makes progressive passes, assists, goals. When he was at Frankfurt, he was so good in the Bundesliga, and he's a player that he's just such a majestic player on the ball, but he's also such a tenacious player. He tries to win the ball back. As an attacking midfielder, it's unbelievable. He can play as a 6, 8, or a 10. He's so versatile, and all I'm really doing is hyping him up for Crystal Palace fans, really, because they've got themselves an absolute gem in Daichi Kamada, and I'm really excited to see what he does in the Premier League. I would have absolutely thrown everything at getting him if I'm Forest. But unfortunately, that's a very early one that we missed out on. But it's the only attacking midfielder, right? After that, it's wingers. So if you want to go into wingers, I can go into wingers as well. That's
Yeah, carry on. I mean, I think we're going to sell Josh Bowler, aren't we? And I mean, there's rumours about Hudson-Odoi going as well, which I've seen a lot of fans oppress that. Now, I'm not completely against that. I mean, Chelsea have got a big sell-on fee, haven't they? But you look at how his season went. He scored a nice goal against Burnley. Then he went quiet for a month or quite a few months. Then we signed Reina on deadline day, and that woke him up, and he played 5 really good games. And then he went quiet again until the last 3 games of the season where he was really in form. So I don't think it'll be as huge a miss as people are making out. But obviously, I'd rather keep him. But we've only got Elanga and Hudson-Odoi, haven't we? So I think with 2, we'd still like to have a 3rd. And if we lose him, we'd like to sign 2. So what have you got for us there?
Yes, I think with Hudson-Odoi, I think the really important thing is that we spent 3 million on him, which obviously a lot of people know. Now, if Chelsea's sell-on clause is 30-40%, it's one of them where you're going to have to sell him for upwards of 30 million plus to really see a benefit. So I don't feel as if selling him is a good idea unless Chelsea's buyback, like sell-on clause is like 20%. And I think you can sort of go, well, if you're selling for more than 30, we're making back loads for PSR. Players I think that this is a really important position for depth. So I went for Jota. A lot of people will know a lot about him from his days at Celtic, but he's still only 25 years old. don't think he really, from what you read, I don't think he's loved his time out in Saudi Arabia. I don't think it's worked for him. And he's a player that got 36 goal contributions in 52 games for Celtic. I know a lot of people are going to point to the fact, oh, it's the Scottish League. It's not the highest standard and stuff. And,
Yeah.
and I completely understand that. But the way he plays, the way he moves, the way he dribbles, I just think he'd be fantastic in the Premier League. I think that the Saudi Arabia move was weird because he did have offers from the Premier League, and that's potentially a red flag that he went to Saudi Arabia. But you've got to understand that it's not a long career, footballers. And when you get offered the sort of wages that he got offered, you get it in a way. But if he wants to come back to Europe and he wants to play in the Premier League, I think you could convince him to come to Forest. Absolutely. You're offering him a way back in. I don't think it'd take a lot to get him out either. I think you're talking probably about 10 million quid, 15 million quid maybe. He's yet to hit his prime. I think he's a fantastic idea to bring in. And then the second one I had for a winger was Roger Fernandez from Braga. Now, this is someone that I am a massive, massive fan of as a prospect. He's only 18 years old, but he can play left wing, right wing, and he offers a bit of cover. He's not going to start every game, obviously, but you've got Alanga and a Hudson-Odoi. If you brought Jota in as well, he's not going to start games every game, but he has the potential to be an absolute superstar. Last season, 2 goals, 7 assists in 14 games in the League of Portugal at 18 years old. You know, he's creating 5 shot creating actions per game. He's 4 progressive carries a game. He's a real good dribbler. He's a player that could absolutely blossom into that next superstar. And you know, when you see Brighton pick these types of players up, where it's like they're going to blossom into the next superstar, and that they pick them up and they sell them on for a massive fee. This is exactly what we should be doing. And this is the sort of player that we could bring in. We could develop him, help. He's Portuguese. He fits that sort of criteria, that small bits of criteria that we seem to enjoy of a Portuguese player. I think it makes a lot of sense. And he's out of contract with Braga. So again, you're talking a player that's not going to cost you anything, not going to command massive wages at 18. Absolute no-brainer for me. Just to add a bit of depth in the out wide, because after you get past Alanga and Hudson-Odoi, there's nothing else really there, is there? You're talking Alex Martins and Josh Bowlers and Emmanuel Dennis, which I've projected all of them to leave in the summer, which I'd imagine they all will. So you're going to need some depth there, and I think that those two would be fantastic for us.
Yeah, Jota's left-footed, isn't he? Because I think signing a left footer to sort of supplement Hudson-Odoi and Elanga would be massive there. Just quickly, as attacking midfielder, what's your thinking on Brandon Aguilera? So obviously went to League One this season and started off all right, maybe tail off a bit to the end. Do you think send him alone to the Championship next year, see how he does? Because that is ready for first team football in the Premier.
Yeah, so in my plan, I've got Aguilera going to a Championship club. I think he's got so much ability. I think at the day we're recording this, he played for Costa Rica yesterday, and I watched his assist, and he has got those moments of magic, and he does look a really talented player. And I think if we're not able to bring in a 10 or a backup 10, I mean, like I've not mentioned people like Callum O'Hare. I mean, if we brought in Callum O'Hare, I'd be really happy with that. I mean, he's going to be on
That's a free, isn't it? Yeah, free.
Yeah, it's a free. It's a free, and he's got a lot of ability. You're just going to have to sell it to him that he's going to be in behind, down the pecking order from Morgan Gibbs-White. Can you sell that to him? I don't know. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But he's the sort of player I'd look at as a free option. But yeah, I mean, Aguilera, if we kept him around and he played the cup games and he maybe came on in the odd Premier League game, it'd be a good experience for him. But I'd rather him go to the Championship, play 40 plus games, put up a good season, like get sort of like 10 assists or something like that, and just really look like he's going to blossom into the next Morgan Gibbs-White. Because in the summer after, you can sell Gibbs-White for stupid money, bring Aguilera in, and potentially he's ready. That's the plan. That's the ideal plan, isn't it, money-wise?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I always bring it back to what we did with Brennan when we sent him out on loan to Lincoln. He bulked up, he had a really good season, came up and then led the line for us for a couple of years. So if we can do that, then that'd be a really good thing to do. So we'll move on to strikers then. We've obviously got Awoniyi and Wood at the minute. Thank goodness Origi's going. It looks like Dennis, who is a striker / winger, is also going to be let go. Both of them really reliable, I suppose, in terms of giving you consistent minutes. And that's why Forest are looking there. We've touched on Shay Adams. I guess you're looking at a younger player, Adam. What have you got there?
Yeah, so obviously I wrote this before the Shay Adams thing. This is probably the one where I went very lofty because a player that's on a free that hasn't extended his contract with AC Milan yet, although he is in talks with a contract with them from various media outlets. But But I would love to see someone like Luka Jovic come into Forest. I understand that he's not a backup. He's going to come
Yeah.
in and he's going to want to be the starting number 9. He has a very good injury record in the last couple of seasons anyway. Not someone that's going to be injured all the time. The only issue with him is that he's in contract dispute with AC Milan. Last season, he did relatively well in Serie A. He got himself 6 goals and an assist in 23 games. He is a good player, and he is a player that maybe would set his sights higher than Forest. But if you could bring him in, I know you're going to have to pay him a decent amount, but he's on a free, comes into the Premier League and gets himself 10, 15 goals. He's still only 26, sort of entering that prime years of his career. I think he'd be a fantastic option for Forest. And again, another player that I like and I've identified because he is with his progressive passing as well as his pass completion rate. He is someone that can bring those wingers into play and allow players like Alanga and Hudson-Odoi to score more goals, which is something that's going to be vital to us. And I think he'd link up with Morgan as well to get Morgan a few more goals, because that's something that's often lobbied at him, that he doesn't score enough goals. So if someone like Jovic coming in would actually work, but the club have actually kind of picked out a cheaper version of Jovic, wages-wise at least, with Che Adams, and maybe a more realistic version. Jovic is a better footballer than Che Adams. It's not really close on that. But if you're talking to someone that will come to you and someone that gives you a similar sort of thing, scores goals with progressive passing as well added in, Che Adams is maybe a lesser version of Luka Jovic. But I don't know, if you offer me one of those two, I'm still going to take Jovic every day of the week.
Yeah, I gotta say, when you sent us the little spreadsheet that you'd made, I read it. I read all the way to the bottom, and I saw Jukilovic, and I think I replied to you, and I said, "That's the one that excites me if we can pull it off." So if we do, you heard it here first. And we'll touch on Taiwo then. Forest reportedly considering offers, but don't really want to let him go. I mean, my thoughts at the end of the season was cash in, because I really, out of frustration, was just fed up with him turning up for 5 games and then being injured for another 15. And if Forest can get a very good, maybe 25, 30 million plus, I might be thinking, I'm not saying definitely, but considering selling him. So would that ever come into your thoughts, or are you thinking maybe 40 million plus?
It's a really tough one with him, because we all know that when he's on the pitch, I didn't see a defender. I didn't see any defender really deal with him very well. He can absolutely bully defenders.
Even Saliba, didn't he?
Well, exactly, and that's why Chelsea were in for him when they were looking for a new striker, and we just said no, absolutely not. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. If Chelsea were offering 60 million quid, if we had known what was going to happen last season, we would have took it, wouldn't we, with the injury record? But last year was also an AFCON year, and he didn't go because of his injuries. But I don't know. I just feel like he leaves Forest, goes to West Ham or something, scores 20 goals in the Premier League next year, and then goes to like a Chelsea, or they make loads of money on him. It's such a tough one. We didn't spend a lot on him, so yeah, I suppose if an offer of 40 million comes in with PSR, they might look at it and go, well, if we bring in Che Adams, we've got Chris Wood as well. Maybe we think we can get on without him. He wasn't exactly the difference maker last season, was he? Chris Wood was. So, but for me, I can't see a world where we should sell him. It's hard, because if you're bringing in Che Adams, you're going to have 3 strikers. You're going to have to share the minutes out between them, which I think would be fine. They're all, they've all had their injury issues, but I don't know. I can't let go of Taiwo yet. I still like him. I still think he scores a lot of goals. I still think he's the best centre forward I've seen at Forest in my lifetime. I think it'd be hard to let him go now. I'm hoping we get a full, because he had full seasons in the Bundesliga. It's not as if it's. Do you know what I mean? It's not as if this is like it's played his whole career. He has had full seasons.
Yeah.
And it's different injuries. It's not always the same injury as well, which makes you think that he can come back. My hope is that he'll come back and he'll be the first season Union Berlin style Taiwo, and we'll get some out of him. He's still got 9 goal contributions in 20 games last year. I mean, that is hard to ignore, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm not denying that he's a fantastic player. Look, when he plays, he is basically our attack. He is a spearhead. And I don't think he was fit the sort of last period where he played between what was it, West Ham and Villa, something like that, when he played that little sort of 5 or 6 game period. He didn't look fit. But when he was on fire at the start of the season, wow, you just think who is going to stop him? Just quickly before we go, have you got any other strikers that, if Jovic or Adams doesn't come off, have you got any other options there?
Well, I think it's hard. I mean, I like the profile of striker that can do more than score goals, because I think for clubs where you're a bit more down there and you're struggling, you can't. And I think we struggled at times with Chris Wood, because Chris Wood scored us a lot of goals, but he can't do anything else other than score goals. Someone I was a massive fan of for that role is Jonas Fint from Wolfsburg. I suggested him last summer as well. 11 goals, 7 assists in the Bundesliga last year. He is a striker that can play as a striker, can play as a second striker, can play just on the left or the right of the front three as well. Only 25 years old, still yet to hit his prime. Difficulty there is that, is he going to want to go from Wolfsburg to Forest? And this is kind of where we put ourselves in a difficult spot. We don't know where we're going to be next year. Are we going to be fighting relegation? Are we going to try and push up to mid-table? We don't really know. But if we're going to go for a profile of striker, hopefully someone from South America that no one's ever heard of, that comes in and for not a lot of money or not a lot of wages like Murillo. But if we're going for a profile of striker, I want a striker that can do more than score goals. I want him to be able to involve the wingers. I want him to be able to involve Gibbs White. I want him to be able to do more than put the ball in the back of the net. So I think if we get that, we get a more varied source of goals. And I think that's important for us.
Yeah, Chris Wood's got better at that, but I think you can only really have one of him. So briefly, Adam, in a word, before we go, is it coming home?
No. I feel really, really negative. I just think defensively, I don't think that I'm very worried defensively for England.
Yeah, him not choosing Branthwaite drove me up the wall. That really, and I'd be starting him, let alone not taking him on the plane. But we'll leave it there. We hope you've enjoyed this special episode. We'll have more to come. And if you missed the season review, then make sure you scroll back up the feeds and listen to that. I think it was Tom, Stephen and Rich who did that with contributions from us all. And make sure you follow us on social media and on all your podcast apps. You can find the links at the words 1865.football. Thanks, Adam, for joining me. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Social Podcast Network.
At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply.